Hi guys, you're here with Black Excellence Bristol and you're here acknowledging achievements and aspirations, and I'm here with the tremendous Osei Johnson. If you don't know Osei, he does a lot of work with African Caribbean Assembly and also do a lot of acting as well.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I also act, model and dance, and other stuff.
Look at all this. Wow. So all-round performer, basically.
Yeah, creative of all kinds,
Yeah.
which is cool. Not so much writing, especially not poetry, but writing like theatre shows maybe. But yeah, all-round creative, which is fun.
And so how did you get into doing like performing arts?
I've always done acting to some extent. So when I was, I'm not sure how old I was. I'm not sure how old I was. I think I was like 10 or 11. But I performed in London when I was in school in London, in a recreation of Stephen Lawrence's murder,
Wow.
which could be extremely traumatic. But I was his best friend, so I spent like 2 hours just sat on my knees. And I ended up getting like a Princess Diana award for that. So that was cool. And then I sort of like fell out of it for a while. And then I got back into it, I want to say like 3-4 years ago, 2018-ish. And I started at Bristol Vic, which is great.
Did you study at Bristol Vic, did you? Or?
So I haven't actually been to like a theatre school or anything. I've just sort of like...
Just come to you naturally.
No. So I joined like random workshops at Bristol Vic, the theatre, who just do like workshops for younger people. I think it's ages 5 to 25. So I was doing that for like a year, and then I just finished their course called Made in Bristol, which is like for anyone after that. Like they say, people in a gap year, and I like to describe it as all things theatre, basically a crash course in theatre. But before and outside of that, I've just been like working on other stuff. So I did a short film last year with a friend of mine for New Creatives, which is on BBC iPlayer. And that is called To My Younger Self, and it's about solitary confinement. And that was like, for me personally, that was one of my best things to perform in and to do, because is hopefully the beginning of a conversation about how solitary confinement for children under the ages of 18, for anyone but children under the ages of 18 especially, is just like completely inhumane and deprives them of like all necessary factors to be able to grow into a proper normal human being. So on top of the fact that it was fun and I got to be out in fields at like 5 o'clock in the morning, freezing. So yeah, it's always good.
So what do you mean by like solitary confinement?
I don't even know if that's the correct terminology for it anymore. I think the government decide not to call it that, but in prisons and juvenile detention centres, they put people into cells for, I think it's up to 23 hours a day, where they're just on their own and they have like just a mattress.
That is by definition inhumane.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. If it was like like the Taliban or something, we'd say that's terrorism or that's bad, but because it's our government, we're like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, and that's something you experienced yourself.
No, it's not something I experienced myself, but it's something that is close to me, because one of my brothers was in prison for quite a long period of time, and just I can imagine talking to the person, and I can imagine my own experience in that situation. It's not pleasant.
Of course.
So especially for children, which I think the statistics are children need something like 22 hours of human contact to be able to develop and grow properly. So putting them in cells for like 21 hours a day is completely counterproductive to helping kids grow into productive members of society. So yeah, for me, I think it was more about like the impact that it can have on people,
Yeah.
and having seen that firsthand.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And how was your brother like? How did that affect him, do you think?
God, that's a big question.
Yeah, I'm sure it's affected him in many different ways as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago, so I can't ask him myself. But from what I understand, it's like I don't know how to describe it other than like the most isolating feeling a person can go through.
Yeah.
And after like the year we've just had, I think we can all understand that to some extent.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's just much worse because you're in prison, like behind fences and locked doors, and then you're in a cell on your own with nothing to even like do except for like a bed to sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just I can imagine that is extremely traumatic.
Yeah, definitely, to say the least. And, you know, speaking of family and stuff, have your family been like supportive of, you know, your acting and your performance and stuff like that, and performing arts, sorry?
I feel like they're always really supportive, but there's always those funny comments. My brother says to me whenever he sees like new pictures on my Instagram or like a modeling thing that I've done, he's like, it just looks weird because like you're just that 12-year-old kid that I know with like a snotty nose or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but like you've known me my whole life, of course.
Can't accept, but you sort of grown into this person. I get that a lot with my brother as well, because he's quite a bit older than me, and I think it's weird for him to see me like doing like even like doing things like this, because there's like 8 years between us.
Yeah.
So I think he still thinks of me as like this little kid, basically, you know.
Yeah, older siblings are interesting. I'm one of 7, and I'm
Wow, that's a big family.
and I'm second youngest.
Yeah.
So there's lots of them above me. But yeah, they're great sometimes. They have their moments.
And what is like your family's background, like your heritage? Is that a complicated question?
That's a very complicated question. So it's easier to just focus on me because my mum's kids are like rainbow kids is what she calls them.
Yeah.
But my mum is mixed race. Her granddad was from West Africa, and he came to Bristol in like the 1900s. I think it was like 1915 to be specific. He was part of the West African military division that existed at that time. So that's pretty cool and interesting to know about like that side of the history in Bristol.
So your family's been based here since 1915?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is pretty insane to me.
Yeah.
Because lots has happened in that time,
Yeah,
especially
of course.
in Bristol.
Yeah.
Especially around race and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all pretty cool.
That's so interesting, 'cause I never even knew, but like there was generations of black people who were here. Like I feel like for a lot of people, our first sort of thought of early immigration in England was from like the Windrush generation and stuff. So it's interesting to hear, but like, you know, even prior to that, so it's like World War One sort of time, but they had African people coming over first.
Yeah, both my granddad and my great-granddad fought in the wars. So my great-granddad fought in World War One, and that's why he came here. And then my granddad fought in World War Two, and yeah, both of them also had like quite a wide influence on the Bristol community.
Yeah,
so I'm told.
Yeah. So like within your family, because I see this a lot in West African families in particular, but there is a sort of like not British pride, but a sort of like they feel positively towards like the monarchy and the empire and these sort of things. Is that as you've got family who's like, you know, fought for Britain and for colonial Europe, is that still part of your family, do you think, or part of their upbringing?
Yeah, definitely for my granddad, so my mum's dad, that generation and above, they feel like that. So my granddad still refers to us as coloured people.
Really?
And
what, your African granddad?
Yeah. And I'm like, that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, they definitely have an affinity for like colonial Britain, or Britain in general, but especially like colonial Britain, and what it has done for them.
That's really interesting. That you think you feel like your sort of generation of family has kind of moved away from that?
My mum is a radical.
Yeah.
My granddad, to some extent, he obviously isn't like completely just like Britain is the best, but like he understands that as a black man or a coloured man, things were different for him. And he was friends with like Roy Hackett and other people.
Wow.
So he's not like completely in love with Britain, but my mum took that to the next level. It was like completely radical, especially because so she was born in like the 60s and like took part in like the countrywide riots in the 80s because she likes to move a lot, so she was in London and in Bristol at the same year. So yeah, she was like around doing stuff. So I think that is what has swayed me to be a bit more radical. But yeah, definitely get it from my mum.
Yeah. And did you grow up in Bristol?
Partially. So we lived here until I was like 5, and then we moved to London, I want to say till I was like 13, 14. So like 8 or 9 years, the best part of like 10 years. And then when we came back, my mum wanted to like stay out of St. Paul's in Easton. So we ended up living in like whiter areas of Bristol, like Kingswood.
Really? Wow.
Which is interesting because it definitely showed me different experiences that people have and different mindsets that people can be coming with, and just to be a bit more aware of like the space that I'm in. Not that makes me change, but it definitely makes me aware of how people are acting.
Yeah, because if there was a place in Bristol that I would say was lacking in like African Caribbean influence, I'd definitely put Kingswood on the list. So has that been like a big hindrance for you to like sort of explore your identity and your history and culture?
I don't think so, actually. I think that's pushed me more because I was always around like lots of white people. There were a few other like black and mixed race people, and we always stuck together and were like friends. So there was always like a smaller community within the larger community.
Yeah, you had like your support network and stuff, so that's good.
But yeah, I just feel like the seeing white people experience black culture like without actually being in it was weird to me. So I was like, I need to be able to educate people on how we experience it properly together.
And like with the African Caribbean Assembly, ACA, how did you like get involved with that? Because when I was introduced to it through RAF, it seemed to me like you two were like the sort of main two.
I feel like I carried that on my back for so long. Me and Cleo carried it together. I'm not going to say I did it on myself because I didn't at all. But yeah, me and Cleo carried it for so long, and then Raf came along and he sort of like threw himself into it. But for me, it was like just as the BLM protests were happening last year, and me and Cleo were working together, I think since the November before, so like November 2019. So we knew each other, we knew like the work that we wanted to do, and things that we were interested in. And as soon as that happened, she was like, okay, cool. I work with the elders in Bristol, and they've tasked me with doing this. I wondered if you would be up for it. And then a few other people got involved. And I was like, yeah, like definitely, obviously, this right up my street. So yeah. But yeah, that's been a fun ride, and we've got lots. I feel like have gotten lots done and are building to do more. So yeah, stay posted on that.
Yeah, because I love having that here. Like, you know, it's really nice to see so many people brought together through this organisation. Like there was the first meeting I attended, and there was like 50 of us or something, and there was like all sorts of different like, what's the word, like groups, you know, on like sort of activist groups and social action groups, as well as like actually being able to speak with a lot of elders in the community who I'd like never met before. There was a few familiar faces as well, but it was great to like, you know, meet some other people and sort of find out kind of about what other organisations exist within Bristol for our community as well. So that was really great, and I appreciate the work you and Raf done and the work Cleo's done as well. Like shout out Cleo Lake.
Again, Cleo's the best. Yeah, she's like my mentor and role model. So she's great.
She does acting as well, does she?
So she's actually trained in dancing. She went to Bath University and did dancing, but then she got into politics and has also done acting and other stuff. I feel like creatives often are just like jacks of all trades because work is just intermittent at best, so you have to be able to do loads of things at once. Hustlers is what they call it.
And so just to wrap up, basically, what's one of your like, what would you say is one of your most proud achievements thus far? You know, it could be in any field. It could be like, you know, emotionally, physically, within your performance you've been doing, or within activism you've been doing. Anything but to you seems like important, or like something you're just something you want to tell the people. Big up yourself, you know.
This is difficult because not that I don't think of things that I do in a positive light, but yeah, just the thing that I'm most proud of.
Or if it's a couple things, that makes it easier.
Yeah, I think that might make it easier. I'll see if I can think of something. A couple things that I'm really proud of are the short film that I did last year that I spoke about earlier. That's really good. Check it out. It's on BBC iPlayer. And then working with Dr. Mina Fombo, who's behind, I think, is Black Girl Con and Black Girl Magic. And Michael Jenkins on like just consulting on a black culture space. They're still working on that behind the scenes, but I'm proud of being able to have the opportunity to like even engage in that conversation. So that's really good, and I'm excited about the future of that and where that's going to go. I'm proud of the work that I've done with Bristol Old Vic and like showing them different aspects of or different parts of like the black community in Bristol, but also being there for other black people who are in the building. I think there are a few things that I'm proud of.
Yeah, no, that's good. It sounds like there is. Like, you know, I feel like you're being quite modest at first, but in reality, it's actually like how many things are going to list off.
It's difficult to think of one thing that I'm proud of because there's different areas of things that I do for work. So I don't want to just say like I'm most proud of the creative stuff I do or the activist stuff I do. But yeah, also I completely forgot, but I work kind of with 1625. I used to work with them a lot, but they're a homelessness charity in Bristol. So yeah, I've done a lot of work around homelessness because that's something I experienced myself. So definitely like, if you're in Bristol and you're ever struggling, check them out. They are really good. So I'm proud of the work that I've done with them because that's been good for my development overall. Yeah,
that's great. Lots of selfless things. Everything you've named there has been pretty much creating something for other people to kind of help them on their journey. One last thing I'd like to ask you is what's one of your like sort of goals for the future? Or if you've got a few goals, because you might have a few, but something you want to like achieve maybe in the near future, or even just, you know, a life goal for you?
I want to say, like, everybody says set goals in life. I'm the complete opposite. I say the complete opposite. Never set a goal in life. I used to, as a kid, I had all of these goals and, like, I could never, not, like, achieve them, but, like, it never happened. And then as soon as I stopped setting goals and just started working and being in the moment, that was when everything happened. So I feel like for the future, the best I can say is that I want to have an effect on the community in Bristol, whether that be like just the black community or the wider community in Bristol, but have an effect on the community in Bristol and how we interact with each other. And hopefully we do it a lot more like this.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That was really, really interesting, everything you said there. I've definitely learnt a lot from you, and I hope the people at home watching this, or wherever you're watching this, I hope they get to enjoy that as well. So thank you so much for coming through to speak to us today. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. It's really fun. Yeah, it's great to have these conversations and just to get to see other black people and creatives in the city.
Yeah.
So big ups to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, definitely do this again.
Yes.